All right, so moving beyond the hurt, because this is a question that I get many times from people is how can I move beyond my emotions of being dumped or being divorced? How can I find that happy place? Number one is your happy place isn't going backwards. So this is so common that you find in divorcees is that they go back to the gym because they're trying to get like to high school size or high school weight. They start connecting with people on Facebook all over again. Number one is don't be going for old flames. You tried it once, you stopped it for a reason, so don't go back there. That's just unhealthy. And the other thing is to understand is you're not going backwards. Like you can't go in a time machine and be that guy. And don't assume that you can replicate, right? So many times people are like, oh, I want to get back to that size. Don't get to that size. Don't go backwards. Get to a new you because we're always moving forward. That's just how life is. So right now, for me, when I was in high school, I was a much different body. I was much smaller. I was a tinier frame. I think when I graduated, I was like 5'10" and a half and I weighed 140 pounds. I was just tiny. I didn't have any muscle mass like I do now. And so there's no idea of me getting back to 140. Number one is I'm 6 foot. So number one, I put on height, and then I put on weight from a standpoint that my body matured more. I got more broad. I got bigger muscles. Hair's falling out a little bit, but hair doesn't weigh enough. And so for a lot of people, you're not going to go take like this trip to Europe and go backpacking and go find myself or go have this spiritual awakening. I know that a lot of you don't have the luxury of time to do something ridiculous like that. Although I will say so there's a small percentage of people that will find a lot of value in that. So I'm not neglecting that that's a potential opportunity for some people is to go, away from where their current lifestyle is, right? So the current city where they end up breaking up or divorcing, and the ex lives, just down, 5 miles away. And so you keep constantly running into each other. You might find value in leaving the state. You might find value in taking a nice 2-week vacation. What I'd say for the average person though, is having that kind of luxury of time or of money just isn't going to be there, or wanting to be that many days away from family might not be what you want to do. And so what you want to identify is what kind of version of you do you want to see? And don't get hung up on all the voids. That's one of the biggest flaws people will make is, let's give an example, right? So, Sally gets divorced from Jim. Jim has already moved on to another gal, right? And so Sally's like, oh my gosh, look at that gal. She's in better shape than me. She's younger than me. So all of a sudden, Sally just looks at all these things that she's not. And then she looks at herself running around taking care of the 3 children. And then she's got, herself with a lack of self-esteem and the lack of confidence because she loved Jim, and Jim, totally swept her off her feet. And then all of a sudden though, 10 years into a relationship, Jim's like now moved on, right? And is it that Jim moved on, or Jim deliberately made decisions to move on? That's really what happened, right? Oh, I fell in love. No, you allowed yourself. You opened up your heart. You opened up your mouth. You opened up your mind, your thoughts to engaging with that person. It wasn't accidental. You moved on. And so what Sally needs to do is the exact same thing. I'm not saying go find a rebound dude, because that's very unhealthy. Don't allow bad habits to creep in to validate your existence. That is not a healthy way to deal with a breakup. And that's not a good way to move on with the hurt. Now, some people will say, hey, a palate cleanser is nice. I will say for the average person though, they don't do a palate cleanser. They do something completely drastic. They end up, unfortunately, sleeping around. They end up neglecting their children. They end up getting into, not serious drugs, but they, experimental drugs and things like this. And so they end up creating these really poor habits, make really poor decisions that you just don't want to compound with you. You're getting DUIs, or, all of a sudden your kids are being called in because they're not getting enough rest because mom, you're dropping off at mom's house or something crazy. So you want healthy avenues to move beyond the hurt. I find that exercise is probably one of the best for most people, whether that's doing meditation yoga, whether that's doing Pilates, hiking in I think nature is a great one for a lot of people if it's not too frigid like it is here in Wisconsin. But going out and just being one with nature. If you got an animal like a dog, those are great to go walk and just have quiet time. Now, I know for some people that are extroverts, quiet time is horrible. I understand. Trust me, I understand. But being able to allow your mind to think about you, you're going to need that to move beyond the hurt. Getting caught up in your children's stuff, it's a nice distraction, but it doesn't help you. It doesn't help you move on. And you want to move on. You want to move forward in this. And it does take time. For what's the time limit? I just don't know. Every person's different. For me, it can take me like literally, I don't know. Last time I got dumped, let's see, 3 weeks. Boom, done. And literally it happened overnight. Like so struggle the first 2 weeks. I got dumped. And then that third week, boom. Like I woke up one morning, I was like, boom, cut it out. Disconnected, deleted all the phone, deleted, unfriended, everything. And it was totally therapeutic for me. Loved it. But I'm a freak. I will tell you that. I am a freak when it comes to that. Like I love to just move on from people. Makes me feel good. Just cut you out. Cut you out. That's what happens when you wrong the Sherm, the crazy Asian. I just cut you out. So not everybody's wired like that. So I want to be respectful of what you're thinking and what you're going through and how difficult it can be. So if you, when I say exercise, I'm not saying go to the gym and go bench press 350 pounds. I'm saying just go out and move your body, move around. That can be extremely valuable for people. The other one is look at hobbies and go in, right? And look for a hobby that puts you in an opportunity to engage with other people. So I love reading, but I wouldn't say joining a book club is better than you reading at home, because what I want to do is you need to break the habit and the habit that can get created when you start thinking about only yourself, especially in a breakup or especially after a divorce, right? In divorce, you're always talking to attorneys and how you were wronged, and that becomes the center of your conversation. Not very healthy in regards to moving on, because you keep rehashing all the ways that you were hurt, all the ways that you were wrong. And so we need to get you to a better place. And so ultimately, how do you know that you're at that place? Is when you can reflect back upon that relationship with zero emotion, that you do not feel like you are emotionally stacking in any way or in any shape or form. So for example, let's say the last relationship that you were with, anytime that you missed something on the grocery list when you went to go buy something, that the other person literally got angry at you and would scream at you for not getting the milk. And that was one of the things on the list to get. So in a new relationship, if you forget something, feeling emotionally like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get into trouble, that is emotionally stacking. And so you're actually having an actual physical or emotional response towards something that shouldn't be negative. Forgetting to flush the toilet, and all of a sudden, you're like, oh my gosh, like I feel so horrible. I forgot to flush the toilet last night. Again, when you start talking to more and more people, you hear the weirdest things. So understand that for you to move on, you're going to have to put yourself a little bit uncomfortable. The nice thing is that you're really uncomfortable right now because you just broke up with somebody that you've had a long-term relationship with. So now it's a perfect time to keep feeling uncomfortable and go do something different. So if exercise isn't the thing, find out a hobby, right? So that's whether that's like joining volleyball. I know it's athletic, but maybe it's curling. Maybe it's curling. By the way, is the thing that you throw on the ice. It's up here in Wisconsin. We basically can do it outside on the rivers and the lakes here because it's so cold. Or it's I think picking up there's a clay studio near our place, and they can do they have like clay throwing nights where you go and you make your own pottery. I think about maybe even volunteering your time, going to like the Humane Society, the Boys and Girls Club, becoming a mentor. And again, it's something directly for you. And volunteering your time to other people is valuable, but it's something that you really enjoy doing, right? So if you don't, and it shouldn't feel like babysitting. You know, if you're already watching your children, it shouldn't feel like babysitting, right? So don't go volunteer at the local daycare at the YMCA, because if you're already taking care of young children, you're just going to feel like you're working at home again. And so it becomes important for you to be able to understand what's going to help give you this sense of a kind of I don't want to call it a mission, but a sense of purpose and I mean purpose in a small scale, but it gives you some direction on where you want to go, and that can be really, really powerful. And so only you know yourself on what it could be, whether it's a hobby or a craft, or you know, it's something that's process driven. Some people will journal, and I like the idea though as well. In order to move on, is doing something group setting, figuring out, meeting strangers, joining maybe a local networking association, maybe the Lions Club, something that's going to be able to allow you to meet other folks where you're not talking about your life, you're talking about something completely different. Hopefully that's helpful. Sherman On.